Today's video is brought to you by Oxedo LED lighting. You might think that you can see just fine at night. Well, I did too, until I did this little upgrade. As you can see from this footage, here is some before Oxedo LED lighting, and here is some after Oxedo LED lighting. The difference is amazing. With high brightness and easy installation, Oxedo LED lighting is definitely the route for you. They're easy to install, and they're available for all makes and models. Click on the link in the description below and enter promo code 612motorsports at checkout to get yourself 15% off. Now back to our video.
Hey, what's up guys? Chuck Sightsinger here from Street Outlaws. Thanks for watching 612 Motorsports. Coming at you.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of 612 Motorsports. In today's episode we are going to be doing an oil change on the 2002 Chevy S-10 Xtreme. Now for some of you this is very simple and you've done it 100 times or 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times, and you could probably do it in your sleep. But there are some people who have never done this. You're newer drivers or people that just maybe didn't think that they had the ability to do so, or maybe thought it was something they just weren't able to do, or didn't want to try because, well, you know, don't want to screw anything up and cause some damage. But this is for all of those people out there that have never done this before. So we're going to actually go ahead and do a step-by-step process on how to do an oil change. Now, just because this is an S10 does not mean that it's going to be any different than, say, my dad's Camaro or the neighbor's Jeep or any of the vehicles on the road today, minus your Teslas and things. Not sure if they even have any kind of oil, but you would think maybe a lubrication system for some moving parts of some kind. But this is a general oil change how-to video, and it's going to work on any car, motorcycle, snowmobile, lawnmower. It's all the same concept. Things just might be located in a little bit different areas, and your oil filters are all going to be different as well. And depending on the vehicle that you have, you might be using a different type of oil that will also be dependent on the region of the country you live in. Warmer climates, colder climates, they'll tend to use a little bit different, a thicker or a thinner oil, depending. But that's for another day. We're going to get into this right now, so follow along. I'd like to take a couple of seconds to interrupt today's video to make an announcement. The 612 merch store is officially open for business. As you can see, I am wearing a design now. This happens to be the first design of the launch, and this one is extra special to me because, well, not only is it the first design that we're doing, but it also happens to be a photograph of my grandfather in the late 40s pumping gas at a filling station he used to work at in central Minnesota. We also have hoodies, joggers, leggings, stickers, t-shirts of other varieties, coffee cups, stainless steel tumblers, the list goes on and on. We have 3 designs currently available for you, and now until the end of the year, every Friday we're going to be adding a new design, so you're going to want to check back to see if there's something else that has captured your eye. The links and everything for that store are going to be down below in the description, so make sure you check those out. Now back to the program. So the first thing you're really going to want to do is get your vehicle up off of the ground a little bit. Whether you're using ramps or jack stands and a car jack to lift it up and place those under. You just want to make sure you're doing it so that it's very safe. Now I'd like to take a moment to point out a fact that my vehicle is pretty low to the ground, and yet some are even lower. That's where you would probably need a jack versus your ramps. But if your vehicle can actually drive up a ramp and not tear off your front bumper or anything like that, go right ahead. Now, I do want to give a quick shout out to Rhino Ramps. See if I can get that in there. It's not a sponsor, but they make a very nice hard plastic ramp that actually is low profile, and between the Xtreme here and the green truck back home in Minnesota, I can drive both of those low vehicles up on these ramps and not have any problems. So if you also have a low vehicle, I highly recommend the Rhino ramp. So before you get started, the first step is to have all of your supplies at hand. You're going to need oil, a filter wrench, and a wrench for your drain plug. Now, your oils are going to vary depending on what you want to use or what is actually recommended in some of the newer vehicles. And your filters are all going to be different depending on what vehicles you have. So if you just go to the auto parts store and say, hey, I've got a such and such year, make, and model, I need a filter and what oil is recommended, they'll let you know and they'll set you up with a little package such as this. So now that you've got your oil and filter and all of your supplies handy, and you've got your vehicle up on ramps or jack stands, next thing you want to do is locate your oil drain plug. In my situation here, it happens to be this bolt, and it's usually going to be on the lowest part of the oil pan. Therefore, when you remove that, you get all of the fluid out. So once we've located our drain plug, what we're going to do is put our catch pan underneath. And you don't want to put it directly underneath, but you want to have it out a little bit because it's going to come out in a stream. Like if you're pouring milk out of a carton, you hold it a little bit away. So we're going to go ahead and crack that loose. And then we're going to just take the rest out by hand. And sometimes I'll hold the pan up a little bit just to help catch in case it gets a little out of control. We just don't want to have a mess. This can come out a little ways before you start to see any oil come out, but it will start to drip. And I want to position myself here to be able to handle it. We're almost there. See, it's starting to drip out a little bit. And there she goes. So we're going to let that drain down completely.
A few moments later.
So before we go ahead and put our drain plug back in, I did just kind of want to show you what one looks like up close. It's this little tip here. It's going to focus for me or not. So this little tip here is actually a magnet. And that's going to pick up any little metal shavings that are floating around in your motor and hold them there so that they don't recirculate back into the engine and do any damage. Now there's also a little black rubber seal on here, which is going to keep that from leaking as well. So it's always important to kind of look at if there's any shavings on the end of your plug. And you want to make sure that this rubber seal is not damaged in any way here that would cause a leak that you wouldn't know about. So we're going to go ahead and put that back in. We're going to wipe that off at the bottom, just till we know if we have any leakage happening anywhere later on. We're going to go ahead and just kind of snug this down a little bit. Not real tight, because with the heat cycles, when it gets hot and cold, it's either going to tighten itself up or it's going to fall out if you don't do it tight enough. So you just want to give it a nice little bit of tension to hold it in there. That seal will make sure that everything stays good and clear of any oil leakage. Now you might be thinking that there's no oil left in here. You would be wrong, because the oil filter is going to hold, depending on the size, anywhere up to maybe a half a quart. So the filter is our next thing to deal with, since we're under here. And mine is located right here. So what we're going to do is drop that and replace that one with a new one. Now sometimes you can remove them by hand. Sometimes you need the wrench. We're going to find out what is going to work in this situation here. They're not always very easy to get a hand around or some sort of grip. And that one's not going to budge, so we're going to use our filter wrench. And we're just going to use it to get it loose. As you can see here, I can turn it by hand. Now there's not a lot of threads on those, so you want to make sure, see it's already dripping, that we have everything lined up and in place for that, because believe me, you don't want this kind of a mess. And it will leave a mess, especially all up and down your arms. We're just going to let that dribble drain for a few seconds. Alright, so now all of our oil is completely drained from the motor, filter and all. Now, if you're new to the channel, you probably have not seen the video I made a while back comparing different brand oil filters. Some are better than others, believe it or not, and I will put the link up above. You'll want to watch that, because not all filters are created equal. What you're going to want to do before you install your filter is, you'll see that it also has a rubber ring around there, a little seal, just like our drain plug did. Now you're going to want to dip your finger in your old oil, just like so, okay? And then you want to put a little layer all the way around on this seal. Very important. That's going to help that seal seat to the metal. Okay, we've got our seal oiled up, and we're just going to go ahead and screw that on. And this is also hand tight, and you don't want to torque the heck out of it. You just want to get it hand tight. That again will tighten up as time goes on. Probably tighter than it needs to get, and as you saw, we did have to use the filter wrench to get the other one off. Alright, so if you look here under the hood of the truck, you'll see this little yellow handle. That's the oil dipstick. That's where you check your levels. This here is where you fill. If you notice on the top, it's going to actually tell you that it takes a 5W30. Now, that can be a recommendation. Like I said, depending on what type of climate and things you live in, you might want to run a little bit thicker or a little bit thinner oil. I know back in Minnesota, I used to run a thinner oil in the winter and a thicker oil in the summer. Just made things a little bit easier with the climates and stuff. So, take that into consideration, but usually for the beginner, if you're just learning how to do this, just go by what is actually recommended for your vehicle, because, well, that's what they recommend and that's what they probably use. So we're going to go ahead now and put oil in. Most motors are going to take about 4.5 quarts on average. That's what this one takes. Some vehicles may take more or less depending on the size of the motor and the size of the oil pan itself. If you have an oil cooler, like an external unit, that would be kind of like a radiator, your vehicle might take a little bit more just to get it up to level. Also, you can consult your owner's manual, Google, or your local auto parts store to find out exactly how much it's supposed to take. And some of that stuff too you might actually find here on the fender tag. As you can see, it's telling me like the size of the motor, the spark plug gap. It's got a little bit of information, how the serpentine belt's supposed to route, that kind of thing, as far as the evaporation system, the evap as they call it, which is usually the culprit for your check engine light to come on. It's that evap system. But that's another video for another day. We're going to go ahead and put oil in this bad boy, fire it up, make sure we don't have any leaks, and then it's time for you to try yours at home. So on your dipstick, let's see if this is going to show up or not. There's going to be little hash marks. There's going to be little hash marks, little X's, a little window here. That is where you want the oil to be, within that little window. There's a little word here that says add. If it's below there, you need to put some in. If it's above, you have too much. And you don't want that either, because it'll cause too much pressure and you can blow out a seal. So you just want it within that operating range. Now, if you happen to pull your dipstick out and it is bone dry, usually about 1 quart will get you to the bottom of the add line. So you'll want to at least add 1 quart. And once again, you're going to want to check your oil only when the engine is cool and has not been running. All that oil, when it's running, is flying around in the engine and lubricating things, and it's actually going to give you a false reading on the dipstick. So please do that when it is cold. And on your jug of oil, there's going to be a little window on the handle side usually, and it's going to tell you how many quarts are in there and where you're at about, so you don't have to guess. That's where we're going to stop for right now. We're going to let that drain down, and then we're going to check it with our dipstick just to check where our levels are at. If you can see that, focus for me. Well, I am right within my window of operation here. So our level is just right. So since we've got the hood up and we just did an oil change, it's probably a good thing to go ahead and just kind of give all of the fluids a check. So we'll go ahead and check our overflow jug here. And that looks pretty good. Nothing to worry about there. So we'll check our power steering. And that's looking a little low. As you can see, it's got two holes in there. Those are the bottom hole is going to be the low level line, and the top hole is the full level line. As you can see, we've got a little drop just down by the bottom hole. So we'll go ahead and throw a little bit in and take care of that. Much better. And this here is our brake fluid reservoir. That is right up to the full line, as you can see through the container there. There's a little line in the dirt, but we're right up there, so that's good. So we know all our fluids are where they need to be. Now our next step is to start it up, let the oil get flying around there in the motor and get everything lubed up, and then we're going to look underneath to see if the filter or the drain plug is leaking at all at that point while the vehicle's under pressure. And if not, we are done and everything is good. If you do happen to find a little leak, just go ahead and give whichever it is, either the filter or the drain plug, just a little bit of a tighten, and that should take care of the problem. So we'll take a peek. Nothing's dripping. We're looking good. Now that we've started up the car and checked underneath for any leaks or anything of that nature, and we're in the clear, we're going to go ahead and check our oil level one last time now, just to make sure that it's where we need it to be. And yep, we are good. So that is a success. Well, that's going to wrap her up for today's video. I hope you do enjoyed. Although it was just a very simple oil change, it is something now that many of you can do at home with confidence. I have confidence in you. You should as well. If you've made it this far in the video, please go ahead, hit that subscription button, the notification bell, leave a comment, a thumbs up. All of that stuff is super, super helpful, and it's very greatly appreciated. Also, check out the links in the description below to follow my Instagram and the merch store. Thank you so much. As always, stay positive, work hard, and make it happen.